The appropriate disclaimers, of course, apply, although I really like Eric's one. It cuts right to the chase on here. The quick snapshot of why you should pay attention to our company right now is that we're delivering a copper project at the right time. We're a group that has a proven strategy. As Eric mentioned, we have executed our strategy before. We've made major discoveries, which we've drilled out, de-risked, and monetized by selling them to a major company. And we have very good quality partners that are backing us as we move forward. By right project at the right time, we already have a large resource in hand. We'll go into that in a few moments in details. It has some very good characteristics about it, good grade, low strip ratio, and most importantly, it's in a brownfield setting. We're immediately adjacent to a mine that's effectively pre-stripping the top of a deposit that's shared by ourselves and the neighbors. Much easier to develop a mine in a brownfield setting than it is in a greenfield situation. And copper is incredibly important. I think Tim mentioned or showed some of the information about the importance of copper going into a new green energy economy. These are going to be highly sought after deposits, and they're increasingly rare to put your hands on. As explorers, we've done a pretty good hand of kind of cleaning the shelves of these type deposits out there and packaging them up and selling them to majors. They're going to need more than we can deliver, so these will be pretty highly sought after. As far as quality partners, we'll mention that specifically it's actually Rio Tinto that just came into us as an investor, and a very significant investment in both endorsing the project and providing us with the funds to go forward. Osisko Gold Royalties has been working with us. Both of these groups have come in at very opportune times for us because they've provided us with funding to explore at very good rates. We typically, when you have a strategic partner come in, it's at an over market placement. It's not as dilutive as raising funds in what have been kind of challenging markets. So these are very good opportunities, and part of our strategy to maintain our share count low, to maintain maximum benefit for our shareholders when we execute the full plan. It's also important to think that it's not just investors and companies. When we talk about shareholders or stakeholders in the project, we're also talking about the communities around us, and we'll touch on that briefly. So actually, Regulus is the second company of 3 that we've held within our same management team. Our first company was called Antares Minerals. From that, we spun out, for the sale of that, we spun out Regulus Resources and a sister company called Aldebaran Resources, which is working on a very interesting copper discovery in Argentina that we can talk about at another time. With all 3 companies, our strategy is fairly simple. What we try to do is use our experience and our knowledge of the South American Cordillera to put our hands on projects that have potential to be very large copper or copper gold deposits, drill those projects out, show the size of them, de-risk the projects, and then monetize them by selling to the major company that's the likely operator. Our first company, Antares Minerals, we had the good fortune to discover the Akira deposit, which we drilled out and sold the first quantum for $650 million in 2010. And now we're on to what we think are 2 equally exciting projects with probably even a better setting to be, a better moment to be having a project like this. Our share structure is fairly tightly held. Actually, we have a large fund called Route 1 out of San Francisco that owns nearly 24% of the company. With a new investment from Rio Tinto, they've now become slightly over 16% shareholders. As insiders, we hold a fair amount of shares. Our market cap is approximately 120 million. This share structure is post the closure of the Rio Tinto investment, which just closed yesterday afternoon. We'll announce it on Monday morning. So where's the project at? We're located in northern Peru. Let's see. You can see we're up in the northern part of the country. In a stretch of the Andes, it's remarkably well endowed with very large copper gold or gold deposits. We're 30 kilometers away from the Yanacocha deposit, Newmont's big gold mine, and we're in a cluster of deposits immediately next door to us. So when we talk about being nearby to near mines, you can see on this diagram, our land position is the collage of red and pink shaded claims to the north here. Immediately adjacent to us is the Tantuatay mine, which is operated by a group of 3 companies, including Southern Copper, which is Grupo Mexico in Peru, Buenaventura and a family company. And then 7 kilometers away, we have the Cerro Corona mine operated by Gold Fields. Both of these are very good mines, but they're relatively short in their remaining mine life. They will run out of ore in the next 5 years, creating a situation where we may see closure of 2 mines. But the future of this district is that there's a large copper gold sulfide mine that's beneath the Tantuatai mine. The Tantuatai mine is an oxide heap leach gold operation. They're mining the cap, the oxide cap, over this very large copper gold sulfide deposit, which is partially on our ground and partially on the neighbor's ground. And the opportunity here is to move from two good mines to a much larger mine, a long life mine line, what we refer to as a multi-generational mine, the type of mine that will provide benefits for quite some time. So if we look more closely, here is the Tantuatai operation in the upper left, so mining that oxide cap. Here's the conceptual pit that constrains the resource that we report. And you'll notice I'm only showing the grade on the right-hand side. We can only show the grade tonnage distribution on ground that we own. We cannot show that on the neighboring ground. We've had agreements with the neighbors that allow us to model in this manner, utilizing their data to constrain our resource. We just can't show theirs. But it's a little hard to imagine that the mineralization stops on that line. So within this resource, we've reported 250 million tons of indicated mineralization, slightly less than 0.5% copper and slightly less than 1/3 of a gram of gold with considerable silver associated with it, and an equal amount in inferred. So over 500 million tons of quite good grade. Something that's very important on this is an extremely low strip ratio, and some of the best grades are very close to the surface. So this makes this a very attractive opportunity to be mined. But the complication in the district really is this complex land situation where really to properly exploit this, there needs to be an integration of the two projects, which is quite an opportunity. I'll briefly touch on what's reported by the neighbors on their ground. They use a slightly different cutoff and different parameters than we do to report, but they report a little over 900 million tons at slightly lower grade than we have. Both of us underreport our resources. There's been considerable drilling on both sides since these resources were reported, and it's difficult for us to fully report our resources without an integration of the full deposit. But this gives a glance of what we're looking at. On the left-hand side, we see our resource, green for copper, yellowish gold for the gold amounts, and broken into measured and indicated. So combined, 5 billion tons of copper mineralization on our ground, 4.5 million ounces of gold, slightly more at lower grade with the neighbors. When we combine this, we're looking at more than 11 billion tons of copper and nearly 10 million ounces of gold. An 11 billion ton copper deposit is a very large copper deposit. A 10 million ounce gold deposit is a very large gold deposit. This has both of them together in a brownfield setting with very low strip ratio. This is the type of target that majors are keeping their eyes out for. This gives a bit of a view. We can see the Tantuatai mine in the upper left. In the foreground is all of our ground. So this is just pre-stripping the high ground for the oxide cap and setting it up to be eventually a larger open pit that will include both companies' ground. Just a few words on the Rio Tinto strategic investment. As you might anticipate, when we have a project of this size, any major copper or gold company that's doing what they should be doing are monitoring these type of opportunities around the world. So we have quite a few of these companies under confidentiality agreement interacting with us, taking a look at what we want to do. And a consistent comment we receive is that they love the setting, they love the overall area, but the complexity of the land ownership needs to be simplified for them to take a look going forward. Rio Tinto's taken the step recently to engage with us to provide us with funding to allow them to evaluate potential eventual roll-up of the district on this, and to specifically evaluate new technology they have called the Newton technology, which would allow for leaching of the primary copper sulfides in the project. We don't have time today to go into all the implications of this. It's very interesting technology that they're just rolling out right now. It's not necessary that this technology works on our project, but if it does, it could make it even more profitable. Keep in mind, Rio Tinto has a large deposit called La Granja, about 40 kilometers away from this, and they're very interested in seeing what they can consolidate in the district overall. So the benefit of this type of an agreement for us is it's a large amount of investment, which allows us to move forward, but it's also a very significant endorsement of our project by one of the largest mining companies in the world that has interest in the immediate area and thorough knowledge of Peru. They wouldn't be making this type of investment given some of the social unrest in Peru if they thought that that was a serious concern going forward. It's also an opportunity for us to share technology with them and just share strategy, understand what they need to see as we move forward in the district. And you'll see it'll result in a pivot point. We've been focusing on growing the size of what we have, and there will be potential for an additional resource expansion this year. But I think you'll begin to see us pivot more towards de-risking the project, defining what the metallurgical pathway is going forward, preparing the project to be of interest to be acquired by a major mining company as we move forward on it. This is already beginning to happen. We're seeing major, both copper and gold companies acquire copper assets right now. I think we're just on the leading edge of this. This is likely to kick in, if not this year, certainly by next year, we're going to see them make moves. And once this starts, it gets into a bit of a feeding frenzy. Once one or two deposits disappears, people get more anxious to move on others. So I couldn't be more thrilled to be in the environment that we're being set up for right now. Just the last couple of words, it's important on this not just to have grades and tons. We also have to think about the benefits for this for the community overall around us. So we take a number of steps. I think when Kevin and I embarked on our first company as geologists, we just thought you found grades and tons and they would buy it. Now we're realizing it's much more important to understand how the project fits into the community where you're working. Is it environmentally responsible? Does it work well that way? And so we put a lot of effort into this. This adds value just as much as drilling. So just to summarize, we've got a great resource in hand already on this project. We have a good group of strategic partners to move forward. There's an excellent brownfields opportunity. So this project has potential to become a mine much more quickly, which adds value to it. And finally, as investors, there are a lot of good copper deposits out there, but many of them already have pretty full value. Their market cap's not far off from what a logical transaction is. We're at about $100 million market cap. Our last discovery sold for $650 million. I actually like this project better right now. So there's a lot of leverage on this. It's a great time to be taking a look at us. So thank you very much for your time, and please stop by and talk to us when you get a chance.